For Unit 3, we're going to look at the coordinate system and graphs of equations, graphs of inequalities, and we're going to really talk about slope, equation of a line, all of those kinds of things. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with the coordinate system and how do we graph equations of lines using just plotting points. So using the equation to plot points. So a couple of definitions here. Definition 1, the two axes are called the horizontal axis and the vertical axis. So when we're talking about the coordinate system, we have a horizontal axis and your vertical axis. Coordinate system is really just a graph. So we talk about it as a graph. Next definition, if one number is associated with another number, then this set of data is called paired data because they are related to one another. Next thing, when we think about a graph, we talk about ordered pairs. So ordered pairs, as we know it, are our x, comma, y. So x is in relation to the horizontal axis or the x-axis. So this is always going to be how much you go right or left. And then the y is always the up or down movement, which is associated with the vertical axis. So this is up or down. So a pair of numbers in parentheses and separated by a comma, such as 2, 5, is called an ordered pair of numbers. The first number is the x-coordinate. The second number is the y-coordinate. The coordinate system shown below, which is what we're going to look at, is called a rectangular coordinate system. So basically, we have our two axes. We have our vertical axis, and then this is my horizontal axis. Horizontal is always the y, vertical is always the x, which is why for the first number in this ordered pair, you're moving right or left first, and then up or down second to go with the y. So here's an example of our rectangular coordinate system. We call it a graph, but it's really the coordinate plane. Notice we have the origin, which is really the point 0, 0. We have the x-axis, y-axis, which is what I just showed you. But we also have when we number our quadrants. So quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. An easy way to remember how the quadrants are numbered is they are numbered in a C shape. So meaning we go with 1, then we go 2, down to 3, and then back to 4. Okay, so that's just, if we're talking about points in their specific quadrant, you have to be able to number them. Now what we're going to look at is how do I actually graph an ordered pair. So we always start at the origin. You're going to move x units right or left. If it's positive, that means you go to the right. Negative means you're going to go to the left. And then for the y value, you're going to move up if y is positive, down if y is negative. So let's look at an example. So let me go ahead and I'm going to name these points just so when I plot them, I can put names by them. So looking at that first point, 3, 4 means I'm going to go 3. So I start at the origin and I'm going to go 3 units to the right. So 1, 2, 3 to the right, and then up 1, 2, 3, 4. So your new point is at that location, 3, 4. 3 units to the right, 4 units up. Now I look at B. B is a positive 3, so I'm still going to go 3 units to the right from the origin, but it's a negative 4, so I'm going to go down 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is going to be my B value, or my B coordinate. Then I'm going to go over to C. C is negative 3, 4. So that means I start at the origin, I'm going 3 to the left. So 1, 2, 3 to the left. And then I'm going to be going up 4 because it's a positive 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4 up. And then last but not least, I have negative 3, negative 4. So negative 3 is going to be left 3 and then down 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's going to be D. So A is in quadrant 1. C is in quadrant 2, D is in quadrant 3, and B is in quadrant 4, if you wanted to give a specific location of them. Let's look at this example as well, just because there's some zeros involved, so just to kind of refresh your memory on how we handle those. So again, let me start by A, B, C, D, E. So first one, -1 up 3, so to the left 1 up 3. Remember, you always have to move left or right first and then up or down. B is going to be 2, 5, 2 to the right, up 5. C is 0, 0, so that's the origin. D, 0 is my x value. So 0, and then I'm not moving any right or left because it's just an x coordinate of 0. So then it's down -3 because the y value says I have to move down 3 since it's a negative. And then for E, it's a 4, 0. So 4 being an x value in that coordinate means I have to move right 4. So I move 4 to the right. And when you get there, you don't move up or down any because it has a 0 as a y value. So E will be at that point there. All right, so let's look at something else. So now what happens when you want to graph an equation by plotting points? So before we actually get into, y equals mx plus b and things that you've heard about before with slope and y-intercept, we're just going to look at how do we plot an equation by plotting points. So this is where you're going to make your xy table. And since we were not going to be using graphing calculators, we really have to understand how do we do this without using a graphing calculator. Graphing calculators, you would just do y equals, and you would plug in a -1/3 x. But in this case, I have to create my table myself. So that means I'm going to have to find some values, and it's always good to pick some x values on the left and on the right, so some negative numbers and some positive numbers. And I'm noticing that I have a 3 in the denominator. So that means any multiple of 3 is going to give me a nice whole number to plot for y, because I'm going to end up dividing by 3. So let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to pick 3 points to plot. Once you have really 2 points, you can connect a line. So I'll plot 3. And I picked -3 and 3 because they're multiples of 3. So what happens is when I want to find the y value, what you're really doing is you're plugging in your x value into that equation and you're simplifying. So I'm plugging my x value right in, and then you're going to see that because I picked a multiple of 3, the 3's are going to cancel out, and I'm just going to have a positive 1 up top. Then I'm going to go to 0. And when I plug in 0, so I'm going to do -1/3, plug in 0, and we know that 0 times anything is just 0. So that's why 0 is one that you're always going to be able to work with too. Just, it doesn't matter what the fraction is, it's just 0 times anything is going to be 0. And then I chose this 3 here, again, because it's a multiple of 3. So that means my 3 up top cancels out with that 3 on the bottom, so I have a -1. So now I can plot these points. So we have the point -3, 1, so that means I'm going 3 to the left, up 1. Then I have 0, 0, and then I have right 3, down -1. And then with a straight edge, you would connect your points. Oops. Okay, so then I'm going to connect my equation, or my points, to create my graph of my equation. And because this is a line, we're going to put arrows on it. So it goes on forever. And it's always good to label your equation. So y equals negative 1/3 x. Okay, so let's look at one other example of this. And that is a similar equation. The only difference is I have a -4 at the end. So we're going to start it off the same way, and I'm going to choose x values again so that I have those multiples of 3 so that fraction will cancel out. So I could also use 6 would be a good one to plug in, 9, -6, -9, any multiples of 3 so that those are going to cancel. We don't really need to plug in that many points, so that's why I'm just choosing -3, 0, and 3. So I plug in -3. So we get, these are going to cancel, so we get -1 times -1, which is just going to be 1 minus 4, which is going to give me -3. Then over here I have -1/3 times 0 minus 4 equals 0 minus 4, which is going to equal -4. And then lastly, I have 3 going into my equation. So those are going to cancel. I'm going to have -1 minus 5 equals -6. And then on our graph, we can go ahead and plot these. So I have -3, -3, which means left 3, down 3. And then I have 0, so I'm going to the origin. I'm not moving right or left, but then I'm going to have to move down 4. And then I have 3 to the right, 1, 2, 3 to the right, and then I'm going down 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down. And then we're going to go ahead and we are going to connect these points using our straight edge. So make sure you're using a straight edge when you're connecting your points. That's important. So go ahead and connect. And then you can put your arrows on your graph. And then again, label your equation. So we have y equals -1/3 x minus 4. Alright, and then one other thing we need to look at here. So the last thing here is horizontal and vertical lines. So what happens when you see an equation like one of these examples here where there's only one variable? So there's not a relation between x and y, or basically, you're not going to be able to plug in one value and get out the other. So what happens is for this first one, let's look at what that really means. X equaling 3. So when x equals 3, it doesn't tell me what y can be. And what that means is y doesn't necessarily depend on x. So when x is 3, for every case when x is 3, y can be anything you want. So it could be like -1, it could be 0, it could be 1, it can be 2. Y can be any number because all my equation has to satisfy is that x is equal to 3. And in these cases, x is always equal to 3. It's the y value that's changing. So if you look on the graph, what does that actually look like? Well, if I go over to 3, so 3 to the right, 1, 2, 3, I have -1 for y value. I could say 0. I can say 1. I can say 3, 2. And remember, I just picked these y values because my equation's not telling me that x plugging in x is going to change the y value because there is nothing to plug into. So it's just when x is 3, y is changing. So you basically start to see the pattern here. When I connect my points, I end up with a vertical line. So I end up with this line here that's vertical, and it's x equaling 3. So any point on that line is always equal to x equaling 3 and y is changing. So let's look at one where y equals the number. So y equals -2. So think about what this looks like in a table. So that means y always equals -2. So I can just pick several values where y equals -2. That's all my equation tells me. It doesn't tell me anything about x. So that means you can plug in whatever you want for x. You can plug in 5. You can say 6. You can have -20. It doesn't matter. You just know that y has to equal -2. So that means when I go to plot these, well, it's going to be -1, -2, 0, 2, -2, 5, -2, 6, -2. You're going to see that you're going to get out a horizontal line this time. So we get a horizontal line going through y equaling -2. So for this one, your equation is y equals -2. So the y values are staying at -2, and x can change and be whatever it wants to be. Alright, so that pretty much wraps that up. So then we'll start talking about more stuff with lines in the next lesson.